Joining us in the studio, Senator John McCain. Senator McCain, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for having me on, and no more conversation about Snooki.
No, we moved on
All right,
past
we moved on
Snooki.
from Snooki. We've gotten the most important issue of
We-
the day behind
Right,
us.
and now we can move into, the lighter stuff, if
Yeah,
you will.
like sanctions on Iran,
Yeah.
or the Medicare Advantage program being canceled out for 330,000 seniors in Arizona, or maybe the latest estimate that by 2014 the deficit will be 16 billion.
Trillion, yes.
Excuse me, 16 trillion. A little factoid: it took us 206 years to accumulate a $1 trillion debt.
Right.
Now we are going to accumulate $1.5 trillion per year, as far as the eye can see. And, it's just...
There's a lot of people that think Washington is broken. It is just flat broken, that there is a fundamental issue that no matter how good a person you have in your district, you elect, you send to Congress, something about, getting inside the Beltway changes everything. I mean, can you understand that fervor, that feeling that people have going, boy, there's some great folks, but it seems like they can't make a difference when they get into Washington because the system won't let them.
I think two things. One is that there is a feeling of frustration and disconnect, but it's not so much because I think the major reason for that is because they see, and I'm sure I have a biased opinion, an administration that's governing from the left, and America's a right-of-center nation. Mm-hmm. So their desires to not have a mortgage our children's futures, their ideas and belief, according to the polls, that we shouldn't have a government takeover of the healthcare system in America, quote, Obamacare, that we should stop spending like a drunken sailor and the bar is still open, that, in other words, they believe that this administration is governing from the left when they are the majority of right-of-center nation. Of course, now this oil spill has contributed to the enormous frustration that people feel. And so I think that, but I also think, again, I am not your most objective observer, but when this administration came to power, unlike other administrations, they figured they had 60 votes, thanks to Specter, the defector,
yes,
and overwhelming majority in the House, and they would just ram things through. And they did for a while. I mean, when you look at the stimulus, the $787 billion stimulus, and the omnibus spending bill, which had 9,000 earmarks in it, and the debt and the deficit go up. And I think that there's frustration on our part that if we had some serious negotiations, like on cutting spending, there's not any real negotiations across the aisle.
Well, there seems to be no give and take anymore in Washington. You have a perspective of having served there. Have you seen the level of, do I want to say partisanship before?
No, but again, and I will take some responsibility for myself and Republicans, but when you're dealing with an administration and a majority in Congress that won't sit down and
even have the discussion.
Yeah, even have a discussion. In 1994, you may recall, Bruce, that the Republicans made great gains in the 94 election. And President Bill Clinton, who was a very smart politician, moved from the far left to sitting down and working with us.
Right.
We had balanced budgets. We had surpluses. We had welfare reform. I mean, landmark welfare. Now, he vetoed it twice before we got it by him, but we did make some progress there. So I'm convinced that after this election in November, and where I think we're going to do very well, that maybe then that President Obama and his administration will sit down with us and do some things that American people are demanding.
Well, it's not going to be because they want to. It's going to be because you're going to have to pull them kicking and screaming across the aisle.
They will have to be forced to do it, but hopefully there is some sense of political reality, the same thing that affected President Clinton when the American people spoke. And look, they've spoken in Virginia, they've spoken in New Jersey, they spoke in Massachusetts, and some of the primaries Tuesday night showed that they're speaking there. And by the way, I'm optimistic about California.
Yeah.
Carly Fiorina and Meg Whitman. I'm very confident that for the first time we have a real shot in California for a Republican Senate seat, and I'm optimistic in some of the other places too.
Yeah.
I'm excited, actually.
Well, and obviously you need people you can work with. Now, you're not going to be able to get to a 100-person Republican Senate at any time soon. Are there still people that you can work with across the aisle? Are there? I'm not saying that they're all bad guys by any stretch of the imagination.
I still do it all the time. I work with Joe Lieberman all the time. He's kind of in the middle of the aisle.
I was going to say he's
on issues.
No man's land is a good way to put that.
On issues like Iraq and Afghanistan, I work with Joe Lieberman and with others. I do work with Carl Levin. He's the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and I'm the senior Republican on a number of the issues that affect the men and women in the military. I just joined with the senator from Delaware, Ted Kaufman, on a resolution to condemn the Iranians for their treatment at this anniversary of the demonstrations. Look, it's not all gridlock, but on major issues such as Obamacare, spending, some of the others, then that's where you really have this kind of gridlock. And again, it's not only that they don't sit down with me, but they don't sit down with our Republican leadership. They don't sit down with John Kyle. They don't sit down with Mitch McConnell. And we're going to have a contract with America. And the first item, in my view, will be, should be, balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, and the second is repeal of Obamacare.
I was, they're on my list to get to you about. Let's start with Obamacare, just because you ended with that. Is that even feasible? And I mean, there's a lot of hoops to jump through between that. Obviously, public opinion has been opposed to Obamacare. President Obama, I think, wrongfully believed that once it passed, everybody would somehow get in line and get excited about it. The fact that he still has to go out and try to sell it to people shows that maybe it hasn't caught on the way he thought it was going to.
Well, one of the most famous phrases in recent history was the Speaker of the House. You remember, we have to pass the bill so the American people will know what's in it. Now, I'm not making up that phrase. She said it. Yeah. I'm not making that up. And so we are finding out what's in it. And one of the things we're finding out, despite the president's promise, and let me just quote you from the Wall Street Journal editorial. First and foremost, President Obama told seniors on Tuesday in Wheaton, Maryland, quote, "What you need to know is that the guaranteed Medicare benefits that you've received will not change regardless of whether you receive them through Medicare or Medicare Advantage." And then they go on to say, first and foremost, nothing about that sentence is true. There are 330,000 seniors who are recipients of Medicare who have paid into it all their working lives who are under Medicare Advantage. It is clear that they are going to cut Medicare Advantage to the point where people will not have it. I mean, and so for him to go out and say that, and then knowing full well that Medicare, and by the way, this Medicare Advantage program gives seniors choices, okay, on eye care, dental care, other, but their philosophy is that government makes the decisions a lot better than they do.
Which is a fundamental disagreement that I think you and I both have.
Fundamental disagreement as to what the role of government is. So, that's just an example of by the way, they spent, I'm pretty sure I have this number's right, $14 million to send out a mailer to people who are on Medicare. $14 million of your tax dollars, which was pure propaganda. I mean, it was pure propaganda. Every administration tries
to... Hey, the party in power there are some advantages, right?
But I got to tell you, I have not seen anything quite like that.
Well, we talk about the role of government, and I've kind of certainly telegraphed my libertarian-type views, where I believe in a smaller federal government. I think a lot of the things that you have that the federal government does, they shouldn't be involved in.
Bruce, the size of government has doubled since 1999. The size of government has doubled, and the numbers are just staggering. The best example, of course, is last month's quote jobless. 41,000, I believe, the new jobs were by the private sector. 400 and some thousand census takers. Census takers. Now, I mean, it staggers the imagination. And of course, if one out of every 5 workers, I believe now, is a government worker. It's got to stop.
Well, it's unsustainable, isn't it?
No, it's totally unsustainable.
And I know that Americans unfortunately, and I'll say it so you don't have to, we don't look outside our borders very often. We don't see what's going around the world. But what you're
look
seeing
at the
here,
European
Greece,
right.
Spain, Portugal, right. The Prime Minister of Japan today talked about austerity measures, saying this can't continue.
The new British Prime Minister, David Cameron, has said we're going to have years of tough fiscal measures that had to be taken. And yet, what are we doing? I mean,
spending.
There's a bill on the floor of the Senate as we speak that has tens of billions of dollars of new spending without being paid for. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a bill that had a whole bunch of stuff in it, but included in that was the war in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right.
I, as you know, support our efforts there, but I voted against the bill because we got to start paying for that. We've been in these wars long enough that we have to accommodate our budget, and I mean accommodate the spending, and that is cut some programs that are not needed and necessary. So what this administration is doing is they have a 10-ear to the rising tide of anger and fear. And when I say fear, it's not for themselves, but fear for future generations of Americans. What are we saddling them with? What are we doing to them?
Yeah, well, and you know, along those lines, and we're gonna take our break, but I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna telegraph the punch to you a little. You ready? So you're gonna hear this one's coming. You have had a long career in Washington D.C. You have had opportunities to affect change in this. I'm gonna come back and ask you, what should we have done differently in the past? What could you have done differently? And then looking forward to your next term, how can we do anything differently? So I'm telegraphing the question to you ahead of time, and I'll give you a second. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
More with Senator John McCain right here at NewsTalk 92.3 KTAR.
Bruce St. James on NewsTalk 92.3 KTAR.
Bruce on NewsTalk 92.3 KTAR.
And we're back with Senator John McCain in studio. Senator McCain, you have served in the Senate since 1987, right?
Right, and I was in the House before that.
In the House before that, so
during the Spanish-American War.
Yeah, exactly. was that Lincoln as ornery as he comes across in writings?
But it was a great play. Other than that,
But you have certainly had a long career there. You have seen a lot of changes, needless to say, over your time there. And my question to you would be: we can both sit here and agree, and you've made the points, and they're valid ones. Washington's broken. Spending is out of control. Out of control. We have unsustainable debt. We have unsustainable entitlement programs at current levels. We have partisanship like never before. My question to you would be: you were there when you were in control. I say it as in you were a senior leader in you had both houses of Congress and you had the White House at the same time. How come you couldn't fix things then?
Well, part of it is, as you well know, the Republicans let things get out of control. I fought them every step of the way, and that's why I was not elected Miss Congeniality. That's why I voted against many of the appropriations bills. That's why, obviously, I voted even against the Medicare prescription drug program because it was unpaid for. But I established enough of a record of physical discipline going all the way back to the Reagan Revolution, where I was proud to be a foot soldier, and on national security issues, that I was able to secure the nomination of the Republican Party for president. That required the respect and appreciation of my peers, as well as the majority of Republicans in all over the country in my quest for the nomination of my party. If I had been viewed as being ineffective in Congress and not a leader in Congress, there's no way I could have secured the nomination of the Republican Party. So we're going to be in the middle of a sea change now. I'm in a leadership position. I'll be the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. I can protect our bases. I can protect America. I would remind you, I was ready to sacrifice my entire campaign because I supported the surge when hardly anybody else did, and knew that was the way to win. I said I'd rather lose a campaign than lose a war. I have consistently fought and will continue to fight to get our fiscal house in order, and I'm convinced with Republican majorities, not only will we do that, but I will lead. But I was not popular during the Bush years, many times with my own party, because we let spending get completely out of control.
Completely out of control.
And we paid for it. And we paid a price for it. The Democrats
I'm
gained,
just a little skeptical. Not you specifically, but the Republican Party is telling me, we've learned our lessons, we promise we'll go back, and we're not going to keep spending, like you said, drunken sailors on shore leave. Why would I believe them now? I say
well, we're going to have to convince. We've got a selling job. In '94, we had the contract with America, and we let spending and corruption creep in. I mean, this Abramoff stuff and the earmarking and pork barreling that I steadfastly fought against when it was very unpopular to be against it. And now I am, but I would also argue during the Bush years, this country was a lot better off than it is today. So even though the spending got out of control,
without a doubt. Well, it's a different of magnitude.
So I'm confident that in a leadership position in the Republican Party, when we're in the majority, not only as chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, but being on the Energy Committee, being on the on other committees that have major roles to play, that I will continue to play a leadership role. Look, I led the fight on the floor of the Senate against the stimulus bill. I led the fight, along with a couple of others, against Obamacare. I know how to fight. I know how to convince the American people, and I know what this country needs. And so I'm confident that I have been extremely effective, but will be even more effective as the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Of course, we are focused on jobs and the economy and our kids' futures. But we also have a lot to worry about, my friend, when we have Iranians developing nuclear weapons, the Chinese acting as they are in our own hemisphere, North Korea. National security is also an issue that I say with some ego that I am looked up to as much as any member of Congress that there is, or any person in this country. That's why you see me so often on these shows. But my focus now and in the past couple of years has been jobs and jobs and jobs in the economy, and we have got to get our fiscal house in order.
Well, I think you still have a bit of a sales job. Maybe not you, but the Republican Party. You better understand that
if you look at
people
polls,
have enough of a memory.
If you look at polls, the rise in the independent voter, we have got a selling job to do. And one of them is we're going to have a contract with the American people. I mentioned to you the two items, the balanced budget amendment, and also I should mention balanced budget amendment. Oh, and repeal of Obamacare. First two items. We got a selling job to do.
Yeah,
but we got good candidates.
I'm going to ask you to hang on for just another minute. We're going to come back and do a real quick segment, and we're going to talk about. I don't know if you've heard about that. There's this immigration issue going on in the state of Arizona. I think it's come up a few times.
I think I've heard it.
And I'm going to ask you some of the questions about that and exactly what we can do with it. Some of the solutions, as I think everyone has identified what the problem is, and where do we go and how do we move forward, and kind of what the tools are that maybe you need in Washington to do that. We'll be right back with Senator John McCain at News Talk 92.3 KTAR.
Strumming with the rhythm that the drivers made. When people passing by, they would stop and say, "Oh my, but that little country boy could play. Go, 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 Johnny, go,
go." Bruce on News Talk 92.3 KTAR.
And we're back with Senator John McCain in studio with us. I want to talk about immigration, obviously the hot button around here. But before we do, you had a vote.
Just one item. We had a vote yesterday. We lost 53-47. We even got some Democrats. The administration, President Obama, and the EPA have said that they can, quote, regulate carbon. What that means is that they can shut down utilities, including the Navajo generating plant. What that would do to ratepayers and our economy is enormous. 53-47 we lost, but at least we're bringing it to the attention of the American people that you should not allow a bureaucracy, unelected by anybody, to affect America's economy in this way. On immigration, I'm headed down to Yuma. The 10-point plan we're working on, we're making some progress, and obviously that drug bust yesterday was one thing that was interesting, is guess where the drugs go through to be distributed.
What a surprise.
Right? What a surprise. When I had lunch with the President of Mexico, I said, Mr. President, I know what the kidnapping capital of the world is, Mexico City. You know what number 2 is? He said, no. I said, Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah.
Not coincidence, by the way.
Not a coincidence. And again, it's interesting. The People's Republic of Massachusetts is even considering legislation similar to Arizona. Isn't that remarkable?
Well, when you look at people and you look at the border issue, the American people are there. You can't find another topic that more people agree on. Which is what's amazing to me when you see the Democrats and the president against it. We can't name another topic that you can get 70% of the American people to agree on.
And 88% oppose the boycott, and shame on people in Arizona that want to harm the economy of Arizona. Shame on them for wanting, saying that we should boycott, including Congressman Grijalva
down in Tucson,
saying that we should boycott this state to harm the economy. 30% of our population is Hispanic. What are they thinking?
Right.
What are they thinking?
They're obviously not. Now,
well, fortunately, the overwhelming majority of American people oppose the boycott. And let's tell all our friends, come to Arizona. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. We love you. We welcome you. Don't be cowed by these special interest groups. And come on and enjoy Arizona and help us defy the boycott.
As your ad says, you want to build the damn fence. That's obviously one of the portions of it. I think
the 10-point plan.
We've all identified the issues, and I would turn around and ask you, because I don't have the answers to these. I'm certainly not on the same level. What can we rationally and honestly do with all of the people that are already here? Because I think you and I would both agree it's un-American and unrealistic to put them all in handcuffs and send them back across the border.
No, but you can address them almost on a case-by-case basis. But also I'd remind you that 17% of the people who are crossing illegally last year had committed serious crimes.
Right. Or maybe fleeing Mexico to avoid prosecution even. Yeah.
Exactly. They go to jail or deported dependent on it. I think there's an idea that's been floating around that we ought to seriously consider, and that's called touchback. People go back to the country that they came from and get in line with everybody else, go through a background check to make sure that they're legit and all that. And by the way, once you enforce employer sanctions, in other words, employers being fined if they knowingly hire someone who's in this country illegally, a whole lot of people are going to leave this country if there's no jobs.
If the jobs dry up for illegals, and we have a responsibility as Americans, that we share in this problem, those people that are hiring them, the 12 to 15 to 20 million, depending on the number you want to believe, we're part of the problem, and we can't just stick our head in the sand.
But the Democrats are opposed, and Obama is unalterably opposed to a legal temporary worker program. We need legal temporary workers. Going all the way back to the Bracero program, the unions are unalterably opposed to it. By the way, who took a little setback in the Arkansas Senate race.
I like to see them waste their $10 million of dues. Good dues-paying members wasted $10 million to lose a primary election.
And
that was
once
awesome.
we get the border secured, once Governor Brewer certifies that the border is secured, then we can move on and address these issues as a nation. There's no reason why we can't. But to say that we're going to move forward when the border's not secured, then no matter what you do, some years from now you're faced with another.
Because we've
group
seen
of
this.
people who come here illegally.
Now,
yes. I love Ronald Reagan.
As do I.
We gave amnesty to 3 million people who were here illegally in the 1980s on the promise we would secure the borders. People don't believe it until they see it. And I guarantee you that I would trust the governor of Arizona, Governor Brewer, to certify if the border was secured. And by the way, they've made great progress in Yuma sector, in San Diego, in parts of Texas. By the way, in Texas, they just got some more UAVs. We need more UAVs on the Arizona border, too.
Fair
enough.
We
can do it. We can do it.
It is doable. It is not this I agree with you that it is possible. It's down to will.
It
is what it comes down to.
Exactly. It's being done. And by the way, we're hearing that these 1,200 people, guard that the president talked about, are mainly desk jobs.
Yeah.
I can't,
No, I'm not surprised by that. By the way, we know nobody in Arizona. You were back in D.C. at the time. Was jumping up and down at the 1,200 National Guardsmen coming. We knew it's a drop in the bucket at best.
I did get on the defense authorization bill a requirement for 3,000.
Sir, I saw that.
And they're going to have a tough time prying it out. I'll tell you that.
Good.
And we need 3,000 of them in Arizona.
I have a question for you. I hear a buzz phrase a lot: comprehensive immigration reform. I have a difficult time getting anyone to define for me exactly what is comprehensive immigration reform. Do you know what it is?
Well, I mean, for example, the on a temporary legal worker program, instead of the program that we think we should have, the unions have the Democrats take a position where they'd have a commission. You know who'd be in that commission? The union leaders.
What a shocker!
I mean, it's a great buzzword, and I know the Democrats are banking on sewing up the Hispanic vote in the future. Well, the future is now. We got to get our border secured. I believe that our Hispanic citizens are wonderful people who want our border secured and want lower taxes, less regulation, are pro-life, pro-military, and a lot of other things that we Republicans stand for and believe in.
I don't disagree with that at all. I got more immigration questions for you here.
Sure.
Are you? I'm going to take it you're familiar with the DREAM Act. Where do you stand on that?
I think it's fine to look at that issue. It's a heartbreaking issue to see young people who separated from their parents and all that. But
or
the way
people that were brought here at age 2 or 4, not their own decision necessarily.
Yeah, that's a heartrending situation. Yeah. But if we could secure the border and make sure that there isn't going to be a repeat of this kind of human tragedy, we can address that issue. And I think we can address it in a humane and compassionate fashion. But just to pass the DREAM Act now, what's to prevent further of these
10,
humanitarian
15,
cases? Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and again, there has to be a stop at some point. You know, I've made the point before, and I don't think you necessarily would disagree with it. Our real problem with immigration is Mexico's lack of a stable, functioning economy. I mean, there's a reason people are coming to the border here, and it's not because they, I understand why they come across the border and risk their lives to do it, and I don't denigrate the people that are doing it.
Let me also
in a lot of ways, but Mexico is the failure.
Listen, Mexico right now is in an existential struggle with the drug cartels.
Right.
The most powerful drug cartel is the Sinaloa cartel, headed by a guy named Chapo Guzman, who walked out of a Mexican jail a few years ago. And guess where that cartel is? Across our border.
Yeah.
Look, the thing that's changed. A lot of people say to me, McCAIN, what has changed? What has changed? The violence has changed. Cutting people's hearts out, dismembering their bodies. It's bound to spill over to our side of the border. That's what's changed just over the last few years. It used to be some people could just walk across our border to come here. Now it's the human traffickers and the drug cartels working together, committing the worst kinds of human rights abusers. I would love to see a human rights organization stand up and say, we want Arizona and America's border secure to stop the terrible abuses that are being committed on these innocent people.
Human traffickers, the people dying in the desert, absolutely.
Being kept in drop houses and held for ransom and abused in the worst possible way. I'd love to see our human rights organizations stand up and say, the way you cure that problem is to secure the border and then let people come to this country legally. We have always welcomed people to come to our country legally.
Yeah. Is this situation at the border worse than it's ever been before?
Oh, by far.
And a reason I say that is, and this is not a gotcha moment. I want to emphasize that that's not my goal here. People's views can evolve over the border, and a lot of people have looked at the border issue and have had these. You and many other politicians over the last 20 years have been able to look at it. It seems like there's more of a hardening, if I can use the term, of beliefs on it. And I was only asking you, is it because of what we're seeing now at the border? There's no more nuance. We just flat need to deal with it.
Because what we're seeing. And by the way, some areas of the border are improved. The Yuma sector is dramatically improved. San Diego. I mean, it's not, but what is getting through, look, just next time you get an expert on, ask whether the price of an ounce of cocaine has gone up or down in the street in Phoenix.
Right.
You know what they'll tell you? It's probably gone down a little. That's the best indicator as to how we're doing.
Economics will tell you exactly how you're impacting it.
But the violence and the brutality and the mistreatment and that's what's gotten worse. And the corruption in Mexico goes to the highest levels, tragically.
Yes, sir.
And so when I say it's gotten worse, I'm talking about violence, I'm talking about crime, I'm talking about cartels, I'm talking about human smugglers and drug cartels working together. 10 years ago, Phoenix, Arizona was not the number 2 kidnapping capital of America. So it's good for Deanna Napolitano to sit back in Washington, I say with all due respect, and say things are better. Yeah, they're better in some areas. They're far worse when you look at some other parameters.
Right. You can
like
read into
brutality.
the numbers. Yeah, you can read into the numbers anywhere you want and find your victories. Tell you what, we take our last break. We'll be back and finish up with Senator John McCain live in studio at News Talk 92.3 KTAR.
Bruce.
On News Talk 92.3 KTAR. Bruce St. James on News Talk 92.3 KTAR.
Welcome back. It's News Talk 92.3 KTAR. Bruce St. James with Senator John McCain in studio. Our last little segment here, Senator McCain. And, we talked a little bit about, we've run through a bunch of things. Let's get to, we did immigration. I feel like we've wrapped that up.
Let me just say that the sanctions against Iran are meaningless. It is not a deterrent. What we're doing to the state of Israel is absolutely disgraceful.
You don't even see my notes, do you? I had Iran and Israel as my last segment here.
Absolutely disgraceful. And, of course, there's no brakes on North Korea.
Well, we just passed our fourth resolution on Iran, UN. I can only guess they're drafting the fifth one as we speak.
They are without teeth. They are not, and we are seeing a situation where our enemies are encouraged and our friends are discouraged. Turkey and Brazil cutting the deal they did with Iran. It's a slap in the face to the United States of America. Look, these are tough times in the world, and I worry about our steadfastness in Afghanistan. I'm going there over the 4th of July and come back with a report firsthand. And can I also say, congratulations on your success, and I've really enjoyed my first in-studio interview with you, and I hope all goes well for you and KTAR.
Oh, I appreciate that.
We were talking earlier on. I hate to recall the first time I was on KTAR. It was probably when we had the coat hanger for an antenna. There you go.
Back in the day, yes, with Pat McMahon, right?
With Pat McMahon.
With Pat, who's an icon around here. But let me just finish up, though. I do want to come back to kind of international issues, because there is an argument to be made, and there are people that make it now, especially with a downturn in the economy. Look at the money we're spending. They tend to be a little more insular. You get a sense of, the Pat Buchanans of the world, who you certainly know, who would rather say take care of America first, but I mean, I'm going to underhand the softball question to you. There are things that happen around the world that affect us here.
We believe that everyone is created equal with certain inalienable rights. I was talking yesterday on the anniversary about a young woman whose first name is Shiva. I can't pronounce her last name very well. She was put in prison at age 19. She was a demonstrator in the streets of Tehran. She now is kept in a cage where she can't move her arms or her legs. The people in Iran deserve our support, our moral support, and people who live under oppressive regimes throughout the world. The greatness of Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher said he won the Cold War without firing a shot. Why? Because we stood up for human rights and for people. I can't tell you how disturbing it is to me when the President of the United States still hopes that Iran will unclench their fist and in many ways apologize for America. I'm proud of America, and I'm proud of what our young men and women are doing today.
Yeah, I still haven't understood the strategy, and everything in politics has a well, behind it. I haven't understood the Obama strategy.
It's the classic liberal, we're all the same, one world.
Well, you see, even trying to play the middle with Israel and Gaza with the flotilla, the recent events of last week.
Well, what we've done to the state of Israel is put them in a situation of great jeopardy. If they were a terrorist organization that were trying to bring stuff into the country next to ours, my friend, we'd want to inspect the cargo.
Yeah, we'd sink the ship. Don't worry. We wouldn't even have that argument. Senator McCain, I really do appreciate you coming in today.
Thank
you so much. You're always welcome. You know that.
Thanks. I'm off to Yuma.
You're off to Yuma. Have a safe flight down. Enjoy Yuma, and we will wrap up. We've got more of the show coming up. Don't worry. We've got more things coming on. We have